Hello everyone, welcome to the live stream. I'm gonna hop on over on my phone and make sure this is coming through right. So if you can hear me and see me fine, let me know in the comments. Give me like a thumbs up or something, just tell me you can hear me. That would make sure we don't have any internet problems going on here before we start diving into questions. So I'm gonna wait here for just a second, see that everybody can hear me okay, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Cool, we're getting thumbs up from Robin, Elizabeth, Scott. Awesome. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and dive into this. So we're just going to cover some questions that you have for about the next hour, maybe hour and a half. And let's just go ahead and dive into this. So Elizabeth, you asked, you said, so, okay, I'm a first-time buyer. I have a DACA scores of, is that right? I have DACA scores 659 and 3 collections. Should I apply for NC Home Assistance Program of 5K for down? Should I get a mortgage loan? He said, I'm working with credit broker, not recommending to pay. Okay, so I think you're asking about like down payment assistance programs. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of them. I've never seen one that is better than a traditional loan. So personally, I would go for, try to qualify for a regular loan. I think it's going to save you the most money moving forward. Empowered with Purpose, you said, I've been in the underwriting for 1 week, haven't heard back anything yet. How long does it normally take? So it really depends. Once you're in the underwriting stage, you're probably about halfway through. So what I would do is I'd reach out to your processor or your loan officer and ask them where you're at. Just see like, can we get an idea of when this is going to come back? But once it does, once the underwriting process starts, it really should only take a couple days to maybe a week max. More than that, I don't really see being too typical. So ask your loan officer and processor, see if you can get some ideas and clarify what's going on there. Don, you said, do all DPA programs mean a higher interest rate? Not necessarily, but most of the time I see them have a higher interest rate than, getting just a traditional loan. Renee, you said, so if my credit goes up and I want to change my interest rate, how much time does the lender need to do so? Ideally, it'd be nice for the lender to have at least 3 days to make sure that they can go ahead and do all the reissuing of paperwork if they need to. So I'd want them to have 3 days. You don't want to, like, on closing day or a day before closing day, ask them to repull credit and then change your interest rate to be lower because your credit score is lower. They're probably not going to be able to everything's going to be all set up. They're probably not going to be able to move forward doing that. Robin, you said, what do you do when you have credit scores all over the place? 724 TransUnion, 658 Experian, 675 Equifax. No one ever wants to use the TransUnion. So your median score is always going to be used. So the middle one, they're going to throw out the highest, throw out the lowest, and just use the middle score. Not the highest, which is a bit of a bummer, but your scores are always going to be different because each of those bureaus looks at things in different ways. Some favor credit cards, others favor installment loans, others look at utilization differently. So that's how they all kind of have different scores. It's really not too much to be concerned about. What you mainly want to focus on is that middle score, because that's what we use for your mortgage. Brianna, you said for a VA loan, the VA came back months later, 1 month before closing, saying they don't approve my husband to take advantage of the VA home loan for 0 down benefit. Have I dealt with this before? It's hard to say because there's not a lot of clarity as to like why, what's going on there. I'm guessing maybe there was an issue with the certificate of eligibility. I need like a little bit more detail to be able to kind of clarify what's going on. What's 9 times 7? Why is it not adding? There we go. 9 times 7. I always learned this little trick. You count up however many fingers. So 63. I think that's about right. Rebecca, you said, I'm looking to buy my first home in about a year. I have less than 2,000 combined in collections. 2 are medical. 1 is a cell provider. Recommend pay or wait until closing. I would not pay them off right now. It depends on how old they are. If they're older, like older than like 2 to 3 years, then I would let them sit. Maybe talk to a credit coach and see what they would recommend, but you're probably not going to get much benefit by paying it off right now. It'd probably actually drop your score. Is it best to use FHA or VA for a second house? So if you're talking about an actual second home, neither can be used. So you can't use FHA or VA for second homes. Now, what I mean by a second home is like you have a home, a primary residence that you're living in, and then you also have another home, like a vacation house or something like that. You can't use FHA or VA for second homes, but you can move out of this property and move into another property. So if that's what you mean, then you can use either of those, and both are going to be a great option. FHA is probably going to be cheaper because you'll have like VA charges a really high funding fee for subsequent use. It's normally 3.3%, or FHA is 1.75%. So FHA might be your better option if you're doing that. Can you use part of your financial aid to purchase a home? I've never run into this, but I don't believe so since it's unsecured. If the financial aid has been sitting in your bank account for at least 2 months, and you'll probably be able to use it. But if it's like a deposit and the underwriter can see that deposit from financial aid, then most likely you won't be able to use that to purchase a home. Jennifer, you asked, how is the growth rate in your subscribers compared to your expectations? A lot more than I anticipated. I didn't really anticipate this YouTube channel turning into anything other than a resource for my clients. So it's been a lot more than I anticipated. Wanda, you said, is it true that for first-time homebuyers don't have to pay the first-year home tax? Nope, you absolutely will pay home tax for the first year, or receive a check after closing. Most of the time, you're not going to receive a check after closing. Most of the time, you're going to be paying down payment or closing costs, or a mix of the two. I think what you're kind of referencing might be a program that existed before the housing crash, where people would actually get money at the closing table, and that's what led to the financial demise in the early 2000s for us. So those programs don't really exist anymore. Which website should I check for the true value of a house before buying? Most of the websites that are going to give you values are going to be really rough estimates. What I would do is I would talk with a real estate agent. They're going to be able to run an analysis, what's called a CMA, comparative market analysis, to see the differences between surrounding properties that are similar. That way you can get a really solid idea for what the home is like right now, based off of their opinion and the condition of the home. You don't want to, just pull something offline, because those don't tend to be super accurate. Do you think December will have more houses available? Right now, the houses I can afford are not in good shape, and yet they want to double the amount of what it costs. Yeah, right now there's a huge inventory issue where there just aren't a lot of homes available, and it's probably not going to clear up in December. This is a problem that's probably going to go on for a while. We don't know how long it's going to be, unfortunately. The big problem is builders are not building nearly at the speed that there is a demand for homes. And we haven't seen an increase in building permits for single family homes, which means that in the winter months, we're not expecting builders to increase building any more than they are right now. So inventory is still probably going to be extremely short, especially in the winter. So it'll be interesting to see when that market starts to flip back around. We see a little bit more inventory. It's really hard to say, but that's a huge problem right now, is there's low inventory, and that's driving prices up, unfortunately. Okay, so you said, can you share some tips on hiring a rental property manager? So I don't have a ton of tips there. What I would recommend is checking out Ryan Ingram's channel. He covers more on the investing side, and I think he'd give you a little bit better advice than I could on the rental or investing side. Okay, if I have debt, should I focus on paying personal debt completely or student debt completely? What I would focus on first is your personal debt. I mean, student debt is personal debt as well. Like it's all personal debt. What I would want you to focus on are the things first that have really high interest rates. So the easiest one is credit cards, right? We know those have high interest rates, and they don't really serve a great purpose. Okay, so I would go ahead and make sure you pay down things like credit cards. Then start paying off, if you have any other types of accounts that have these really high interest rates. Then you can start tackling the student loans. Normally the student loans are going to have probably a reasonable interest rate compared to a credit card. Credit cards are going to be like 20 something percent. So you want to clear those really as quickly as you can. As a real estate agent, can you position USDA loans over other loans to your clients? Is there anything stopping you from doing this? I'm pretty sure that would count as steering. I'm not sure of the exact legality of it, but I do know that is not a good thing to do. And I don't know what kind of legal repercussions there are, but you definitely don't want to steer your clients into a specific program. Because not only is that unethical, but there's probably some laws covering that as well. I don't know about on the realtor side. I know as a loan officer, it's absolutely illegal. I just don't know from a realtor perspective. However, I don't know that there would be a benefit to steering your client into a specific loan. I would always want to give them all of the loan options so they can see what exists. And then, maybe if USDA, is going to cause issues with an appraisal, then you tell that to client, hey, we could go USDA or conventional, but USDA is going to have some issues with this in the property and this in the property. So just keep that in mind. If you go conventional, you'll probably have a better chance getting that appraisal passed, but USDA might come back with some issues. So that's how I would present it. But I'd never want to just steer somebody into a specific loan because that wouldn't be looking out for the best interest of them. Sure. And you said, love your live shows and what your plans for the website. I think you should put some kind of patent on it. I would hate for someone to steal or duplicate such a genius idea of yours. Well, thanks. I'm glad that you like it. I don't know that you can patent stuff. Can you patent software? Or does that become a trademark or copyright? I'm not sure how all that works. I'm not concerned about it. My goal is just to, be as helpful as I can. And part of what I'm trying to do with that is, building a kind of an application that you can log into as help you manage the home buying process. If somebody copies it, it's whatever. I'm not going to spend my energy worrying about it. I'm just focused on doing what I can to help people. And outside of that, I'm going to try to not spend too much energy. If somebody hasn't made something like this yet, then I don't have any worries that someone's going to pop up and do it. Maybe they will. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll regret saying this in a little bit. Okay, so you said, will charge-offs in a year in the past hurt my chances for an FHA or USDA loan? Really what's going to do is it's going to decrease your score, but the charge-off itself isn't going to be necessarily a bad thing. It's mainly just going to come into your credit picture. So having a charge-off doesn't disqualify you from either of those loans. It's just going to keep your credit score probably a little bit lower until that charge-off ages off your credit report a little bit. Okay, so I'm closing in 4 weeks. Just received my updated loan estimate with my locked rate at 2.75. How accurate is this loan estimate? So a loan estimate is always that. It's an estimate. And it's frustrating because, it's frustrating as a lender because the way that the government has made it is they said lenders issue the loan estimate. And the thing that's frustrating about the loan estimate is it's the lender estimating all of the fees in the deal. So they're estimating their fees, but everybody else's fees as well. And so that's where it can become like kind of tricky, because then it seems like it's the lender giving the fees, but it's, we're doing our best to present an accurate estimate, but it's not, that's not always easy to do. So it's still an estimate. However, I wouldn't expect huge changes coming into that estimate that you have. Your rate's already locked, which is great. So that means your fees in section A on page 2 of your loan estimate should not change. Your interest rate should not change. Okay. And if they do change, then the lender should have to cover those fees if there's any change there. Now, all of the other fees, B through, I believe, J, if I can remember correctly, those are third-party fees. So things like title, appraisal, taxes, insurance, those can change. So for instance, if your lender quoted you $1,000 a year in homeowners insurance, but you got a quote for $1,500 a year in homeowners insurance, it's going to be $1,500. That's $500 extra you're bringing to the closing table. And it's not the lender's fault. It's just the quote that you chose. They can't accurately know what a homeowners insurance company is going to quote you for insurance. So should be a really good ballpark for you there. Okay, I live in Cali. I have a secure job and a side hustle that's pretty much pandemic and recession proof. Well, that's good. Should I buy at 40% DTI or continue renting? I think 40% debt to income is fine. I've seen way higher than 40%. It really comes down to a personal preference on what you want to spend. I also see you said issue is I will reach the same mortgage amount in 3. Let me see. I think you have a second message. 3 years through rent, though, if I locked it in now. I think I'm a little confused. I will reach the same mortgage amount in 3 years. Oh, through spending. Yeah, so I would if you know it's going to be a decision that you want to make that's going to be more beneficial over renting, especially over a 3-year time period, I would absolutely do that. 40% debt to income ratio, you should have no problems getting approved for a conventional loan, because conventional will actually allow you to go up to 49.99% back end debt to income ratio. Okay, looking to buy my first home in another state. It'll be a vacation home for now, and in 5 to 10 years, my retirement home. What obstacles will the out-of-state purchase create? So first of all, you're going to purchase it as a secondary residence. So you'll need 10% down as a minimum, and you need a conventional loan. Okay, so 10% down. You'll also have to make sure you can qualify with both of those payments in your debt to income ratio. So if you're already looking at having a vacation home, you probably already know that you can afford that. So probably shouldn't run into any issues there. As after that, you're really not going to have any other issues. Having a secondary residence means it can be a vacation home, and a lender doesn't care about how far away it is from you. So you shouldn't run into any other hiccups as far as the lending process. The hardest part is just going to be finding that property when you're living out of state, and figuring out, are you going to go, I don't know how far away it is from you, but are you going to travel over there to go find these properties? For closing, are you going to have to go in person, or can you e-sign, or what do you want to do? You can do a mail-away closing where they just mail you the documents, you get a notary to observe and mail them back. So those are the only logistical things that I think you'll have to watch out for, but everything else should be pretty streamlined for you. Okay. Okay, what should I do if I anticipate having more credits than closing costs? We got more seller credits after inspection than we expected, but our rate is already locked. So if your rate is already locked, you actually can still change it. Okay. Now it doesn't change to market pricing. It changes to the locked pricing at the time that it was locked in. Okay. So it's a little strange, but basically what you can do is if you have more than anticipated closing costs and it sounds like it's already going to cover, it's going to cover all the closing costs. What you can do is either have that, the overage contributed to a principal reduction. So just to pay off a little bit more of the loan balance, or you can change your rate and have it and buy down your interest rate a little bit. Now it depends how much credit you have. It's, you're just gonna have to look at those options with your lender, but ask your lender to see if you can actually drop down your interest rate by purchasing a little bit more in points with that overage and credit. Do you recommend mortgage broker or shop banks for mortgage loan? I think both. I would shop, personally, I think it's good to shop credit union, bank, or direct lender and broker. That way you can see kind of all the options that you have available to you. Okay, can different lenders offer different PMIs? Yes, absolutely. So different lenders each have kind of relationships with different mortgage insurance companies. And so those can change. Some lenders actually will shop mortgage insurance for you. Some lenders just work with one specific mortgage insurance company. It just depends on how that lender's set up. But you said there's a $50 difference in the two loan estimates that I have. Is it normal? Yeah, so it is normal. So that's kind of the interesting thing, and why rate isn't always the only indicator that you want to look at for a loan. Because like in your instance, or what you're talking about, one lender might be $50 cheaper a month just because the mortgage insurance is that much cheaper, but might have a slightly higher rate. So it doesn't mean that the low rate always means that you're going to get more savings if you have a low rate but high mortgage insurance cost, right? So it can be confusing to kind of look at the difference between those two. What I would look at is page 3 of a loan estimate. So if you can get a loan estimate from both those lenders, I can't remember if it's page 3 or 4. I believe it's 3. It's going to show you the 5-year cost breakdown of all of the costs. So it will break down in that mortgage insurance and interest and all those fees, and that will help give you a better idea at the end of year 5, which is the cheapest option. That way you don't have to try to crunch all those numbers in your head. Okay, can you guide on how much reserve funds an underwriter would expect from a 3.5% down FHA buyer? Most of the time, none. Normally, FHA doesn't require reserves unless your credit score tends to be a lot lower. Now, COVID has kind of thrown a wrench into this, where some lenders are putting on what's called an overlay. Okay, so FHA creates their guidelines, okay, and it says, it has all their rules. Overlays are when a lender adds a rule on top of FHA's rules, because that's their specific lending standards. So some lenders are saying, hey, with an FHA loan, no matter what your credit score is, we need 2 months reserves, 3 months reserves. On average, I see reserve requirements being anywhere from 1 month to 3 months. And that's of your payment. So if your estimated home payment is going to be $1,000 a month, 1 month of reserve is $1,000, 3 months of reserves is $3,000. So that's what I would anticipate if you're running into the overlay issue. But most of the time, FHA doesn't actually require in of itself reserves unless you tend to have a lot higher of a debt to income ratio or a lower credit score. Well, Linda, you said always have the best backgrounds. Well, thanks. I appreciate it. I feel like I keep changing them up a little bit too much. Just to keep things a little bit interesting. And I have this, I don't know, I don't think I can make my camera focus on it. This nice little print. This is a Japanese woodblock print that I got from a friend of mine. Let me see if I can pull it off the wall. here and not shatter it. Oh no, can you see that? Does it focus? Oh, there we go. Yes. A nice little Japanese woodblock print here. I am a huge fan of oh no. What am I doing wrong? Let me see if I can get this back on here. What in the world? There we go. That was an event. I'm a big fan of Japanese artwork. I have quite a few woodblock prints in here. Some in my kitchen, some like in the bathroom. I just like the, I don't know, I like them a lot, but so I figured I'd put this back here. Closing in late December. What do they look at in a soft credit repull? Yeah, so normally your credit's going to get pulled twice during the home buying, when you're under contract and you're going through the lending phase. So once is the hard pull up front to get your credit score, and the second time is a soft pull. And the soft pull is normally a couple days before closing. The only thing they're looking for in a soft pull is not your score. They're actually most of the time not going to see your credit score in a soft pull because it's actually called a refresh score. And all it's going to do is show if there's new debt taken out. So they want to see, did you go buy $5,000 worth of furniture, or did you go purchase a new car right before closing? Because if so, then they need to put that payment in your debt to income ratio. So that's all they're going to check for. They really only care about if you opened new debt, which hopefully you didn't, because then that slows things down. They have to re-put that back into your debt to income ratio. And in some instances can kill the loan if you go and take out, you go purchase a car right before you close on a home, and it goes above your debt to income ratio. So always make those large credit purchases after you close on a home to make sure you don't run into any issues. Yeah, Michael said nothing but dumps on the market. Man, this market's tough. A lot of the homes out there are overpriced, and the ones that are on the market are like overpriced and tend to not be in the best shape, which is just super frustrating. Yeah, and you said who wants to live in an HOA? Yeah, HOAs I don't think are my favorite, especially for how much they can cost sometimes. I've seen some people get into HOAs, specifically with condos, and it's like a couple $100, and you're thinking, what actually is being offered here? And it's funny to hear people justify the HOA sometimes when they're saying like, well, it's got a gym and it's got a pool. I'm thinking, you don't swim and you don't go to the gym. So who cares that you're paying extra money for it? And anyway, like Planet Fitness membership's $25 a month. A pool membership is, I don't know how much it is, but it's a lot cheaper than a couple $100. I'm not a huge fan of HOAs. How can I look good to a loan lender if I'm moving to a new city, a new job, slightly less pay? Really, the longer that you're at that job, the better, the more stable that loan's going to look. So ideally, if you're getting less pay at a new job, then it would be ideal to be there for about 3 to 6 months before you apply for a loan. Now, that's not necessarily required. You could get approved with just a month of pay. You would need an employment offer letter from your employer sent to the lender showing that there's no probationary period that exists with your employment. But the longer that you're at the job, the easier it's going to be for a lender to look at the stability of your income. Which home buying site do you like the most? So Zillow, Realtor, Trulia. Really, they're all, in my mind, kind of function in the same way. Now, Zillow and Trulia, I'm pretty sure are the same company. I'm pretty sure Zillow bought Trulia, and I'm not sure why they have both. I don't know. I don't understand like what, if both of them do different things. So those are the same effectively to me. Realtor.com is very similar. So these, I think a good analogy to think of this, kind of like the difference between a soft credit pull and a hard credit pull. is the same thing with these popular home search sites versus getting information from an MLS. So I'll kind of explain. Like a soft credit pull, gives you a good idea of where your score is at. Hard pull shows you the accurate score. Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, Homes.com, what other ones are out there? These like home search websites are, they're nice because you can go, it's really easy to use and navigate, and it looks really nice, and I can search stuff really quickly. The only issue is these companies use third-party data to try to see what homes exist on the market. And so they're not actually pulling a live, accurate feed of the homes that exist. And when you're in a market like this, that could be the difference between you getting a home or not. Because, a home might actually get listed on the MLS and not show up on Zillow for a couple hours, or honestly, even maybe a day. And that can mean the difference of somebody else putting in a bid before you and getting the home before you even see the property show up. Not only that, but a lot of the information on these sites, again, are pulled, aggregated from third-party data. So they're not always 100% reliable. Now, what is reliable is the MLS. Okay, it's the multiple listing service. And this is what realtors use. Only realtors, licensed real estate agents, have access to this. And the reason why they do this is because they want it to be accurate, so that, nobody without a license can actually, change data in this system. And the MLS is where all of the homes are listed for sale by locally licensed realtors. Now, to get access to the MLS, normally you either need to go through that agent's website, and they pull in a feed that's called an IDX feed. Basically pulls in the MLS data into their website, so you know that that's accurate. Or they can send you like a drip, so emails of, maybe you put up like a specific search, so homes in this zip code with this price with this many beds, and then they email you those. Probably the easiest is going through their website, or maybe they have an app. And the interesting thing is, these realtors can get access to this IDX feed, but MLSs don't really like to play with, these companies like Zillow and Realtor. They're not going to go give them a direct feed to all of their information, because mainly just because of like market competition and everything like that. So ideally, you would want to get it through through a realtor, a real estate agent. Other than that, I think all of those options are going to be good for you. I don't have one that I prefer over the others. Oh, Michael, you said Realtor.com updates quicker. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not super familiar with all the differences between those the home search sites there. Celine, you asked, how can I get in touch with you? If you go to my website, it's just whenthehouseyoulove.com. My email is about halfway down the page, so you can shoot me an email if you'd like. Sean, you said the builders are gauging high net worth clients. I think one of the biggest problems in the U.S. is builders are so scarred from 2008. They stopped building affordable starter homes for millennials. Yeah, there's still a lot of recovery going on from 2008. Specifically with the builders. Like, you had a lot of builders who went bankrupt, who were out of business because of the crash. And so you have only the sturdier ones survived. And yeah, I think you're right to say there's probably a lot that are scarred from what happened, and they're trying to make sure that what they invest in is going to be a lot more sturdy. Now, the benefit is that, you have the underlying security, like the actual loan that secures the property, are way better and way more secure than the ones in 2008, where basically anybody could get a loan. You could go walk into a bank and say, I make $200,000 and get a loan, which is never good. And what I'm finding is it seems like builders are wanting to work on the higher cost homes, kind of touching on what you're saying with higher net worth. I know that my parents are looking at my grandma was looking at building a home, and it was only going to be less than $200,000, and it's been like impossible to find a builder around here who even wants to like consider the project. because they're wanting to work on, you know, 500,000, 750 plus homes because those are more profitable, right? Like why it's almost effectively the same amount of work, but you know, why not go with the project that's going to be a lot more profitable than some of those cheaper ones? So I'm with you. It's difficult. I think the building issue is going to be a problem that we're going to have for a while. It'll be interesting to see how the landscape with builders changes in the next few years with how high demand has been recently. Christine, you said, if I'm using a co-applicant on an FHA loan, will the lender look at both credit scores, DTI? Yes, so the lender will look at both, and you'll have a combined debt to income ratio. So your income plus the co-applicant's income, your debt plus the co-applicant's debt, that will be used to create the debt to income ratio. And they're going to take both of your middle scores, and then they'll take the lowest. So if your middle score is a 712 and your co-applicant's score is a 705, they'll take the 705 to qualify you for the loan. Elizabeth, you said I have $3,000 in medical cost. How bad will that affect me applying for a mortgage? So FHA is probably going to be a better route here because FHA does not look at medical debt at all. So $3,000 in medical debt, you should be okay to go FHA. That's the route that I would take. James, do lenders look at retirement accounts as part of savings, or do they ignore them unless needed? So most of the time it's just going to be ignored unless needed, or at least that's how I prefer to do it. Some lenders might ask for, you know, you to show everything, which is not needed. Now, when you're applying for a loan, you don't have to show everything, okay? As far as your savings, all you need to do is show the bare minimum to qualify for that loan, okay? And I don't think people realize that all the time. Sometimes it can feel like, you know, they want to see every single thing, and if I hide something from them, then I'm going to get in trouble. And that's just not true, because if you need $20,000 to close on a house, all the lender needs to see is an account with a, you know, acceptable source of funds for $20,000. If you have $100,000 sitting in other accounts, the lender doesn't need to see it. If they don't need it, then they don't need to see it. And what I've always done is, if I know that a client has extra money, I don't want to see those bank accounts, because I want a lender to see as, you know, an underwriter to see as little as they need, because the more things that they see, the more they start asking questions. You know, because maybe this other account has a large deposit and this account has, you know, whatever. It just becomes more of a headache. I'd rather the lender see the bare minimum of what they need to qualify you for the loan. So talk with your loan officer, say that you'll figure out what's the number that they need to see. And then as long as you have a statement with that, perfect. If you have retirement accounts, if you don't need them, don't show them. It's just going to make things a lot easier if you don't have to show them any of those documents. And you'll retain some privacy that way, as much privacy as you can have in the mortgage lending world, which is not a lot. Okay, Jason, why is my thing not working? There we go. My wife has worked part-time for a company. She may have an opportunity to switch jobs and work part-time for another company in the same field instead. Will that impact, I think, is there a second message here? Oh, here we go. Will it impact her qualifying for a mortgage? So if it's in the same field, then she'll be fine. She needs a history of 2 years of working part-time in this past job to be able to qualify with this new job. So as long as she has that, then she'll be okay. Okay, Carolyn, when in the process do I have to decide if I want owner's title insurance? You need to decide this before closing, and you're going to tell the lender, and then they'll communicate that with the title company. So the lender needs to know if that way they can put it on the loan estimate and closing disclosure, but the title company is ultimately going to be the person or the company that's issuing the insurance. So yeah, an owner's policy really is not super expensive. Most of the time, like you said, it's going to be less than $1,000. And there's a lot of protection in an owner's policy. I personally would always get one. You know, it's really just, it's absolutely worth it. You know, a good example is a friend of mine closed on a home about a year ago, and let me see if I can get the date right in my head. Closed on the home, okay, but it normally takes sometimes up to a month for that deed to get recorded with the county. Okay, so by the time that he closed on the home, a couple of days after, the previous owner had a lien that was attached to the property. And it was small, I think it was like a couple $1,000s. But now, since he owns the home legally, that's now on his property. Okay, and the person who attached the lien didn't know that the ownership changed because it wasn't recorded yet. So the owner's policy is what protects him in there. It covers any of those liens that happen. Just those things that, because of how slow and arduous the real estate process can be, having the owner's policy corrects and protects you from any of those like clerical errors or any issues that you're going to encounter when somebody has claim to the title of your home but shouldn't actually have claim. It's going to cover all those costs for you. So in my mind, it's well worth it. Robin, I have 2 credit cards that I pay off monthly. Does it make any difference if I stop using them a few months prior to getting pre-approved for mortgage? Nope, not at all. Won't affect you at all. Since you paid off, it's not going to change anything at all. Is there a cap on FHA loan limits? Yes, there is. And this is, if you Google FHA loan limit lookup, you can go find your county in there. All counties have different loan limits to them. Yeah, it says cap 325 in your county. Other options would really be going conventional. Conventional has normally a much higher loan limit than FHA does. So it can be frustrating when you run into those loan limits. In high cost areas, FHA loans go up pretty high. But for most of the country, it tends to be somewhere around that lower 300,000 range. Okay. What if you have a bankruptcy on record? Does that change the opportunities in obtaining a loan, even if your credit score is climbing upwards of 700? Yeah, so loans have a seasoning period. So it's kind of a waiting period from the time of bankruptcy, no matter what your credit score is. So for instance, like an FHA loan is going to require you to wait 2 years from the date of a bankruptcy when it was discharged. Conventional loans are going to be 4 years. Okay, if there was like a foreclosure that happened as well, then you're probably going to look at waiting closer to 7 years on a conventional loan. So there are those waiting periods that you can look up depending on the type of loan you're looking at. Despite, even if you have a high credit score, you still have to follow those waiting periods. But good job keeping your score up after the bankruptcy. I know way too many people who have a bankruptcy and then they repeat the same mistakes that they had pre-bankruptcy. So they had an issue with debt, filed for bankruptcy, and then had more issues with debt, and their credit score was lower. I'm thinking, well, we should have picked up some things along the way, and made some corrections to some financial behavior. But I guess it's not for me to say. Will changing jobs making more money change your ability to purchase a home after you've received a pre-approval? So you'll definitely want to talk to your lender about you changing jobs. As long as that new job doesn't have any probationary period, like a waiting period. Normally this is 90 days for most companies. If you do have one, then you should be okay. But you'll have to figure out the timing of when this happens, because in a pre-COVID world, you could close a loan with just an offer letter. Okay, meaning you could close the loan based on the terms in your offer letter from your future employer without actually starting work yet. But because of COVID, most lenders aren't allowing that to happen anymore. And you need to collect a pay stub or two. So that's 2 weeks to a month worth of working at this new job before you can use that income. So check with your lender and your timing of that. It's going to be easier if you stay at your current job now. If you are looking at purchasing a home soon, that makes things the easiest. But you absolutely can have a job change in the, while you're under contract. Just have patience if you do. I had a guy who it was, I think, 3 days before the closing day. And then he called me and he was like, I changed my job, got a pay raise or higher income at this new job. And I was like, you're kidding. You changed your job. And so we had to wait 2 weeks for him to get a new pay stub to qualify for that. So we had to delay closing another 2 weeks to make that happen. So definitely tell your lender, talk through those timelines to make sure you don't run into any issues like that. Okay, Freddie, you said, I just closed escrow this month using FHA. My plan is to live in it 1 year and rent out the other to friends. Will it be difficult to purchase a second home a year from now? No, as long as that's rented out, that's going to help offset that mortgage payment, your debt to income ratio. So it depends on what type of loan you're using. Your easiest option for purchasing a second home that I imagine you're talking about living in is going to be, I'm trying to make sure my water doesn't spill all over the couch. Your easiest option is going to be conventional. FHA normally has a little bit tighter rules on if you can qualify with 2 FHA loans. Normally you'd need to have about 25% equity in the home that you're leaving before you can get another FHA loan. And there tends to be some other requirements with that. And I have a video on getting 2 FHA loans if you want to check that out. All right, let's see here. Okay, unimproved versus improved taxes with new construction. Should you calculate taxes based off of purchase price or wait on tax assessment? So new construction taxes can be difficult to estimate because you don't have that tax assessment yet. The only tax assessment that you have is on the land. Okay, so what I would do is ideally try to get an estimate based off of the purchase price. And so if you're already in a neighborhood that's developed, then maybe see if you can explore talking with neighbors, or if there's an HOA, talking with somebody there about what they're seeing their taxes coming in at. Then you can probably get a rough gauge of that. Your builder should also be able to help give you an idea of what taxes would look like as well. But if you just go off the assessed value, you're going to be in for a little bit of an awakening when the tax bill comes, because your assessed value right now is just on land, not on the land plus the actual cost of the home. So try to go off the purchase price and then see if you can get some input from some people around you to see what their taxes have been. Nelson, you said thanks for your time and information. You're welcome. Well, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I'm always interested to see like, it's interesting because this channel isn't super exciting stuff, right? Like, we're talking about mortgages. Like, I think the top videos on this channel are about like USDA loans and FHA loan requirements. Like, this is the least exciting stuff. But I think it's so cool to see like a group of people who are saying, hey, we want to learn about this because we want to make sure we're making a good decision moving forward and saving money and creating, taking advantage of the opportunity that we have for ourselves and our family moving forward. So I think it's so cool that you guys are here asking these questions that are like really detailed. Like, I can tell you're doing your research here, because these aren't standard questions that, when I'm talking with a client on the phone, they're not asking these like detailed questions about debt to income ratios and all that stuff. Normally we're like explaining, this is a debt to income ratio, this is how it works. So it's super cool. I can see you guys are doing the research. figuring out what you want. And I'll tell you, like, you're more equipped than probably 90% of other home buyers, because most people just aren't doing any sort of research or understanding the process. And so I think that that's crucial, like having the knowledge, knowing what you want, figuring out everything before you get into it is really what's going to set you up to do what the name of this channel is, win the house that you love. I think that's what's required of you to be able to move forward with that purchase. When you find a house and being able to win that bid is having all the knowledge, having everything ready to go before you start the process. So great questions in here. Michael, you asked earlier zip codes around here. So basically anything in the Dayton area is good. Columbus is an exploding market. I don't know any zip codes in Columbus. I don't know too much about the Cincinnati rental market. I couldn't really speak to that. I do know there are a lot of investors in Dayton right now. The zip code I live in is 45403. And then, you have quite a few surrounding zip codes just in the Dayton area. I'm not just going to I'm not going to rattle off a list of them, but if you look anywhere in Dayton, that's going to be a good option for some rental properties. Okay. This may be a loaded question. When considering FHA Streamline versus non-Streamline, can they have the same outcome like interest rate? Yeah, they can have the same interest rate. Most of the time, a Streamline is going to, one, it's going to be easier to qualify for, but they'll probably have very, very similar interest rates. Some companies will offer incentives to do a Streamline refinance if it's with the same company, where you could get a slightly cheaper interest rate. So, if you're with your current lender and you do a Streamline with that lender, then sometimes they give incentives to go Streamline, and then they'll save you some money on the interest rate compared to doing a non-Streamline. So that's something to look at. Not all lenders have those incentives, but they're going to be very close in their interest rates. Justin, great question. What happens when there's a mistake on the CD where the amount to close is not correct? Michael said, I don't want to meet Cynthia. That I think you're talking about the HOA commercial. So Justin, this is a great question. And this is a problem that I'm working on building. For those of you who don't know, and I know I keep talking about this, and we'll see how long this takes me to build. I'm working on building a software for you where it's just like you don't have to download it. It's just a web page where you can log in. It's going to help you track the home buying process, give you a whole task list and all that jazz. One thing that I want to do is build a loan estimate, basically like a fees tracker, because you're going to get multiple fee sheets through the process. Specifically, you'll get a loan estimate and a closing disclosure. And what I want to do is build a tool where you can put in all the numbers on the loan estimate and then all the numbers on the closing disclosure. And it's going to tell you, which fees changed. Did things go up? Did things go down? That way you can look at things more clearly and see, when you do talk with the lender, hey, section A fees changed by this. Can we talk about what that change was? Section B fees changed by this amount. Let's talk about what that difference was. So as far as a mistake on the CD, that has to be corrected if there is a mistake. Now there are two types of CDs. There's a preliminary CD and then there's a final CD. Okay. And the whole way that mortgage disclosures are set up is so dumb. I feel like whoever made up the rules for all these disclosures has never originated a loan on their life, because it just doesn't make sense in the process. A preliminary CD is almost exactly like a loan estimate in the fact that it still can be just an estimate. So for instance, a preliminary CD might not have all of your closing costs credit on it. It might not have, tax proration credits on it. However, a final CD has to. So on the preliminary CD, it's not required that it has to be correct, but it has to be pretty close. And if there are things missing on it, those big items like closing cost credits, then you need to have that conversation with your lender and make sure that these things are going to be corrected on the final CD, because you don't want to get to closing and then find out there's an issue that has to be fixed. And then you have to delay the closing day and possibly a rate lock extension and go through that whole struggle. So first, figure out what the mistake is and talk with the lender about that. See if it's something that needs to be redisclosed on a new CD. If it's something that's not an issue, then that's okay, as long as it's corrected on the final CD. And I'd want to make sure that you get a copy of your final CD at least a day before closing, that we can spot if there is going to be an error. And again, final CD, not the prelim CD. So the whole disclosure process is really dumb. I wish it would change. Jeanette, you said, I recently stopped talking about house buying with my significant other because it led to a lot of crying and arguments. What are your recommendations on maintaining a healthy relationship during this? That is a wonderful question, and I don't think anybody's asked that yet. So I'm super glad that you're asking about this. And I've played with the idea of eventually bringing on. I have a video with my friend Scott. He just recently purchased the home, but him and his wife do relationship or marriage counseling. Not relationship counseling. They do marriage counseling. And so I've wanted to have him on, or have him do a small little series on exactly this. I feel like I shouldn't give advice on this because I've never really been in a relationship. So, and that's a long story, but so I probably shouldn't be giving relationship advice. But you know, when it comes to money, when it comes to anything that is that emotionally tied to us and charged, the best thing to do is to have that layer of transparency and honesty, but that is only going to work well if you have a clear and effective way to communicate with each other. You know, no matter what you bring to the table, if the foundation of your communication is a little shifted, then it doesn't matter how you talk about money or how you talk about buying a house. It's always going to lead up into something where there's miscommunication, or somebody gets their feelings hurt, or some emotions and some negative emotions are involved. So outside of that, I feel like I probably shouldn't be the one to talk about relationship advice, but I am going to talk with Scott and see if he has some advice, or if he wants to do a little series on that, because I think that would be huge. And you're touching on a really great aspect of this process, and an aspect that I really want to bring into the home buying space, because a lot of content, home buying content and finance content, tends to be just very cold, analytical stuff, which is why I've tried to introduce like some of the calm moments and some of the ideas of, you know, how does this impact us emotionally, and how do we feel about things, because those are also really important, not just to talk about guidelines and everything. And maintaining healthy relationships through this process is important as well. So I think that would be a great area for me to figure out how do we venture into that, and how do I help you guys through that process. I don't think I can do that personally right now, but I'm going to look at some ways at how we can create some content that's going to be helpful for you there. So wonderful question. Elizabeth, can you get an FHA loan for duplex? Absolutely. As long as you live in it, you can. Danny, you said, does a business account hurt or help your home loan? Shouldn't affect it at all, because you're going to be closing from your personal account, and your business account shouldn't come into play there. I need to text Scott and tell him he's gonna have to get on camera here soon and make some videos on how do you maintain a healthy relationship here in the home buying process. Okay, Jackie, you said, I'm going to try and buy a home in August 2021. Would doing a soft credit pull from the credible website you recommend be a good idea to do now, or wait until closer to August? So just to clarify, I legally cannot endorse a lender. Okay, so like in all the language that I use in videos, I'm not allowed to recommend this. It's just a legal thing that I can't do. So I can't specifically say. But what I will tell you is when you're doing a soft credit pull, it's not going to show up on your credit report at all. It doesn't affect your score. It doesn't show up as an inquiry. So you can do soft pulls whenever you want, all day long, and it's not going to affect anything. Personally, I can be impatient, and I tend to like to do things sooner rather than later. So take that however you like to. Again, I can't recommend that you do anything with Credible or any specific lender because that starts to violate some laws. But soft credit pull won't affect your score if you choose to do it now or later. You can tell I've had to take a lot of compliance classes because I'm not trying to get caught by a regulator and get fined or I don't know that has anybody gone to jail over regulatory compliance? You'd have to do some pretty bad stuff to go to jail over mortgage compliance stuff, I would think. Okay, my FHA is in underwriting stage, and my wife applied for her credit card. She's not on the mortgage, but she will be on the deed. Her DTI is 0. Will it affect the underwriting and getting my loan approved? No. So if she's not on the loan, it's not going to be an issue at all for you if she's applying for a credit card. Okay, Anthony said, I'm planning on buying a condo in the next few months. Credit 640 across. I'm thinking of doing FHA. If I get FHA, do I plan on refinancing at some point into conventional? Also, mortgage insurance premium. So it really just depends. It depends on how long you're going to be in the house. Ultimately, kind of as a good rule of thumb, it almost is always beneficial. No, I shouldn't say that. Most of the time it's beneficial to refinance into a conventional from an FHA loan. And the reason why is because FHA most of the time is going to have mortgage insurance for the entirety of the loan. Where conventional, it's going to drop off at 20% equity in the house. So most of the time refinancing to conventional is a good choice. Now, the weird thing is COVID, like rates now with COVID and all this stuff are so low that FHA is still really great. Even with the mortgage insurance it has, you're getting such a low rate on FHA loans that it could even out. So I'd want to do a refinance calculator to actually figure out, if it's going to be a good option for you, especially depending on how long you're going to be in there. But most of the time, refinancing into conventional is a good plan. And really, I think what you're going to discover here is why are you in the FHA loan in the first place? Like you said, you have a 640 score. 640 tends to be, you're going to get better rates going FHA than going conventional. So if you're at a 640 now and you're getting FHA, if in the next year you can raise your score to be a lot higher, get to the 680 plus range, then that's where you're going to get a lot of savings. If you keep the 640 and it doesn't increase at all, or worse, goes down, then refinancing into conventional is probably not going to be a solid move. But if your score increases, then going to conventional is going to be a really solid option for you. Anthony said, extremely glad I found your channel. Can't believe your subscriber count is so low. You have personality and channel quality of someone with 1 million subs. Well, I appreciate it. And man, I don't think subscriber count is low. This is way more. I think 28,000. Like, it's incredible. Like when I first started making videos, it was just I just put them on YouTube to be like a library for my clients, to answer like commonly asked questions and stuff that I could send to help people out. And then some of them started like picking up a little bit. So this is way more subscribers than I anticipated. So I'm incredibly grateful there. But I appreciate it, and hoping to make some content and be around to help as best as I can. So we'll see wherever that takes us. Does FHA look at tax debt? Oh yes, FHA absolutely looks at tax debt. One big thing that you have to watch out for with FHA is they're going to pull a report called CAVERS. And I could not tell you what the acronym for CAVERS stands for. CAIVERS. Credit alert, something, I don't know. Basically what it does, it's a system that shows anybody who's in default of federal debt. Okay, so think of taxes or federal student loans. And since FHA is a government program, they're not going to lend you a mortgage loan if you have other federal debt. So that's why they have CAVERS, is this kind of whole database that shows them who hasn't paid us back. Basically, we're not going to give money to the people who haven't paid us back. So with tax debt, you'll need to get on a plan with the IRS. Most of the time, you'll need to have a minimum of 3 payments to the IRS on a repayment plan for your taxes to be able to clear up your CAVERS alert and to qualify for a mortgage. And then that payment plan is going to have to be included in your debt to income ratio as well. So keep that in mind, that that's something that you're going to need to have. But yeah, definitely get that worked out with the IRS to get qualified for a mortgage. And you'll need to have, like, that will apply to with conventional. You'll have to be on a payment plan or pay off your tax debt to get a conventional loan. Is a lawyer needed when closing a deal? No, it's not needed. It tends to be like a locality thing. Some people prefer lawyers, some people don't. Depends on kind of the area, and it is part of the closing costs. Personally, so I've only had a couple deals where a lawyer's been involved, and frankly, I don't know why they were there. They were there to help. The client wanted to feel like they were protected and their interests were being looked out for. Perfectly understandable. I get it. Was it necessary for them to be there? Not a single bit. That's just kind of personally where I feel like I don't think an attorney's worth it to go through the process. As long as you feel comfortable understanding the documents, because most of the time, if you have an attorney, they're pretty much just going to be there to review the documents and make sure that they look solid. The thing is, there's so much compliance that goes on in the mortgage world, like so much law and regulation, that those documents have been checked and checked and checked by the lender to make sure that they're okay. The only thing that an attorney would be doing is looking to see, if there's anything that you need to be careful for on your side as far as, contractual obligation that you have in the loan that maybe they need to make you aware of. So in that instance, maybe it's worth it to have an attorney for you. Personally, I wouldn't use one. I wouldn't recommend somebody using one. I don't think there's a need to pay for one. If somebody has if you think there's a good reason to use one, absolutely let me know in the comments and I'll share it with everybody. I just haven't found an instance where it's been helpful. Like anytime I've worked with a client's worked with an attorney, like we'll send them documents and then they just send me an email like, looks good. They can, they just paid you to say it looks good. Like I don't get why they had to be in there. Okay, so we have hit an hour here. And what I'm going to do is, we come to this time with every live where I feel bad and some people get in the comments and yell at me a little bit because I didn't answer the question. And it's not personal. I promise you it's not personal. So here's the deal, is every single comment on my videos are answered. Okay. YouTube gives me like a queue and shows me what comments have I not responded to. I can't do that in the lives, but I can do it on all the other videos. So if I didn't get around to your question, go ahead and just copy and paste that over into another video and I'll answer that within a couple days. Okay. What I'm going to do is spend maybe the next 10 minutes kind of brushing through here. I'll try to answer some of these as quickly as I can. But I'm not skipping you on purpose. I promise. I just can't answer all of these. If I answered all of these, I would never be able to get off this live. And eventually I need to sit down and relax and eventually go to bed. So I'm going to kind of breeze through some of these questions here, to see if I can answer some of these, some that stand out. Um, mm, mm, mm. Elizabeth, you said, what are important questions to ask your lender and realtor? Um, I don't think there are specific ones necessarily. I could give you a list of specific questions, but I don't think it would be helpful for you, um, because what you're ultimately wanting to get at is, I think Dave Ramsey sums this up best, where he talks about the idea of somebody having the heart of a teacher, and somebody who has the heart of a teacher is somebody who's willing to answer the questions that you have. So the important questions for you to ask are questions that you have as you're going through the process. So when somebody starts talking about the down payment, if you have a question about that or it's a little unclear, ask somebody, hey, can you clarify this for me? Or ask a specific question about it. Then you can start to open a dialogue about things that you're unsure of. And I think that's going to be the best way for you to determine the people that you're working with and if they're going to be good for you to work with moving forward. That way, you know, you're working with somebody who's willing to help you out through the process. Mm-hmm. Yeah, James, he said changing the wine glass for a wine thermos. There is no wine in here, I promise you. If there was, I would never admit it. This is like, how many ounces is this? Is this 24? I think it's 24 ounces. Um, that would be quite a bit. Okay. Tom, you said, is this the Tom Ford, the designer Tom Ford? When processing an application, if you have cash that's not in the bank, what's the best way to provide proof in order to use it for a down payment? It's incredibly difficult to use cash. You're going to have to find a lender who's willing to do this, and most aren't. Just because for them it becomes an auditing issue. It's just so difficult for them to prove where the cash came from. So first you'd have to figure out, like, where did you get that cash? If that cash came from the sale of something, right? If I sold a couch and got cash for it, then the only way that I could use that is actually I would need to have a receipt of that payment from the sale, even if it was like a private individual. It's just so hard to document cash. If you have the cash and you're looking at purchasing 2 months down the line, go ahead and deposit in your bank account, because a lender only looks back 2 bank statements. So as long as they don't see that deposit within those 2 bank statements, then it's fine, right? Because if you, like, let's say you deposited the cash and then you purchase all the way over here, they're only going to look up to 2 months. And hopefully your deposit was before that 2 months. If it was in that time period, then they either have to source it from an acceptable source, which is almost impossible to do with cash for most lenders, or they have to back it out of your available assets, which can be really frustrating because then you have to find how to get more assets shown in your bank account. So try to stay away from cash. It can just be super frustrating to actually document and get working right. Jacob, you said, I close on a new build in January. Can my agent negotiate some line items on the closing cost amount? I'm using their lender and the title company in order to get a $15,000 credit towards closing cost. Yeah, your agent can always help you negotiate things. Absolutely. Especially in the building process. Builders tend to allow negotiations, maybe a little bit more than a stubborn seller would. And what I've found is that builders are much more likely to give incentives rather than like credits. Like, they'd be more likely to give you a $1,000 upgrade for your kitchen by giving you extra, nicer, I don't know, a nicer dishwasher or something. I don't know, versus giving you $1,000 cash credit towards closing costs. It seems like they prefer to do the incentive route than doing the, just straight cash route. Can I show my crypto wallet of a Coinbase? No. Now I believe there are a couple lenders who would accept cryptocurrency, but cryptocurrency fluctuates so much that most lenders view it like any other brokerage account. And for that matter, like you can't use a stock account to use down payment for home. You have to liquidate any sort of like investment to be able to purchase a home. So lenders don't see cryptocurrency as stable as traditional currency. They view it very similarly to like a stock. So with a stock, you have to liquidate, put it into your account, then you can use it. With cryptocurrency, you'll have to do the same thing. Liquidate, put it in your account, and then you can use it. Most lenders won't accept direct transfer of cryptocurrency. It'd be cool if they did though. I'm not super familiar with I'm not super familiar with cryptocurrency. It kind of scares me. I feel like if I got into it, I would be losing so much. Like I feel like I would be the person who gets into it and then it like tanks. So I'm so afraid to put any money into cryptocurrency. And there's so many incredibly smart people in the crypto world that I just feel like I can't even begin to understand like what people are talking about in the crypto world. It just seems so complex and so overwhelming that I'm too afraid to get into it. Cool. So, all right, we're at about 9:16 here. So I am going to jump off here. So thank you all for joining me here. I really appreciate all of the questions that you've been asking. And, again, like I mentioned before, we're going to get real close here. Like I mentioned before, I can tell you guys have been doing research and asking, because you're asking really fantastic questions. And I think that's incredible because you being prepared is honestly going to help you stand out amongst all these other buyers. So if you're getting discouraged, just know that that's normal and that's okay. But I don't want you to feel super discouraged, because know that the work that you're putting in is going to pay off. Okay. And if it doesn't pay off for the home that you're looking at right now, or if you're still having issues getting approved, just know it's one of those things that somehow in life, no matter what you attribute it to, whether it's higher power, it's karma, or it's God, or it's whatever, normally things tend to work out for the best. And so if something doesn't work out right now, if it's a specific house, or we're having issues with credit, or we don't have the money for a down payment, or we're having issues with our job, or finding a job, or getting the right income, just know that timing normally is in the best interest for us, because when we end up looking back, we end up finding out, it's actually kind of good that I didn't get that thing that I wanted, because that thing that I wanted ended up not being the thing that I actually needed, right? So celebrate where you're at right now. The fact that you're watching videos like this, the fact that you're doing your research, the fact that you are willing to be the kind of person who says, I want to be prepared in the next step and what I'm going to do and what I'm pursuing, I think is huge, because most people are not like you. Okay. We have like 90 people. There's 90 other people who are like you watching this video, but most people are not willing to put in the work that you're doing. Okay. Not just from a home buying perspective, but from, a general personal development perspective. So I think that's huge. Be able to celebrate and be grateful that you have that mentality, that you're willing to put in some of the work to move forward. Okay. So the next live will be on, actually, we're going to skip Thursdays live with Thanksgiving here. So next live will be next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope you all stay safe. I hope you all enjoy some good food. If you have questions, leave them on other videos, and I look forward to talking with you soon.